Hello students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. Like every day, today we will also discuss some of the most important news articles given in the Hindu newspaper. Now before going into the discussion, let's just discuss the yesterday given question. The question is, which of the following states the Kuno Palpur National Park is located? The options are Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra. The correct answer is Madhya Pradesh. See, the Kuno Pulpar National Park is very important for the prelims examination point of view because recently African cheetahs have been reintroduced into the Kuno Pulpar National Park as part of cheetah reintroduction program. So let's look into some of the facts related to this Kuno Palpur National Park, right? So it is located in Shiopur district of Madhya Pradesh, right? So this is in Vindhyan Hills. In Madhya Pradesh, there are Vindhya and Satpura Hills, and Kuno Palpur National Park is located in Vindhyan Hills. And this is located in Kuno Wildlife Division in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so initially it was established as a wildlife sanctuary, and in 2008, government changed its status to a national park. Okay, so it is named after Kuno River, one of the main tributaries of Chambal River, flows through the state of Madhya Pradesh, and Chambal River is a tributary of River Yamuna, and it cuts the Kuno River cuts across the Kuno National Park. This is primarily a grassland region, and flora fauna found in the Kuno Palpur National Parks. So this is home to a jungle cat, Indian leopard, sloth bear, Indian wolf, striped hyena, golden jackal, Bengal fox, and dhole. Among with along with this, 120 bird species also found in Kuno Palpur National Park. Right? This Kuno National Park is selected under Action Plan for Introduction of Cheetahs in India, the Cheetahs Reintroduction Program, where the Government of India reintroduces African cheetahs from Namibia and South Africa into Kuno Palpur National Park. So, what is Project Cheetah? It is world's first intercontinental large wild carnivore translocation project, right? And it is approved by the Supreme Court in January 2022. After the approval of the Supreme Court, cheetahs are being translocated into Kuno Palpur National Park. And close to 50 cheetahs will be introduced into wild over the next 5 years. As of now, 20 cheetahs were introduced in Kuno Palpur National Park. So this is all about the Kuno Palpur National Park and cheetah reintroduction program. So now let's look into the today's news, today's question, right? So the today's question is, consider the following countries. Which of the above countries border Egypt? If you can recall, in Republic Day, the chief guest was Egypt President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. So in this backdrop, it is important to remember countries which share border with Egypt. The question answer options are Israel, Libya, Sudan, Jordan, and Ethiopia. Please type the answer in the comment box, and the answer for this question will give in tomorrow's lecture. So now let's get into the discussion of today's important news articles, right? So these are the list of important news article for discussion today. The first news article is security issues on table as PM meets Bhutan king. China renaming of areas in Arunachal Pradesh is a new low in ties with India. Third, heat wave forecast must be taken as seriously as monsoon. Vacancies of judges high remain high as cases pile up in India, and more women judges in subordinate courts than high courts. So some of the important news articles for prelims. Finland joins the NATO bloc. open network of digital commerce are some of the important news articles for prelims examination point of view. Now, let's discuss the first news article for today. So Bhutan's king is on India's visit. He discussed security issues with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Recently, Bhutan Prime Minister says that China is also part of the discussions on the Doklam issue, a trilateral uh, uh, a junction between China, Bhutan, and India. So, in this backdrop, let's discuss what are the security issues between India and Bhutan, how Bhutan's decision to include China in talks over the Doklam will impact India's interests. Before going into the discussion of this article, let's just discuss or understand the location of Bhutan first. Okay, so this is where Bhutan is located. This is where Bhutan is located, right? So Bhutan share boundary with Indian states of Sikkim, West Bengal, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh. This is where China is located, and this is the Doklam Tri-Junction, where India, Bhutan, China share border. And a Doklam conflict in 2017 is also resulted in a standoff between these two nations. This is Chicken Neck Corridor, and those control the Doklam will also have a strategic advantage over the Chicken Neck Corridor, right? So let's look into the brief overview of the boundary dispute between China and Bhutan. Bhutan and China have no formal diplomatic relations, but they have held 24 rounds of border talks between 1984 and 2006. So talks are concentrated on northern Bhutan and western Bhutan, that is Doklam region. Now, eastern Bhutan not part of talks so far. This is eastern Bhutan, and eastern Bhutan is not part of talks. And Sakting Sanctuary is located in wildlife Bhutan, but it is not important for today's discussion. So before discussing the news article, also understand the significance of Bhutan for India. First, the geographical significance. So Bhutan share boundary with some of the Indian states. They are Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, West Bengal, Sikkim, as we have already discussed. So Bhutan serves as a buffer between India and China. Bhutan is a buffer between India and China. So security of Bhutan's present borders, especially its western border, is important for India because we have discussed why Doklam is important to have a greater control over the region, and Chicken Neck Corridor is also a very important region for India because it is just a narrow pass. So what is the economic significance? Bhutan provides a market for Indian commodities and a destination of Indian investment. Also for India, Bhutan is a rich source of hydropower. There have been several hydropower projects jointly developed by India and Bhutan. What is the political significance? A politically stable Bhutan is important for India. Unstable and restive Bhutan can provide safe haven to anti-India activities, anti-India militant groups. You know, in the northeastern India, there have been several anti-India militant groups. They have been getting safe havens from Myanmar and Bangladesh. So therefore, a stable Bhutan is in the best interest of India, especially from the point of view of security. So we have discussed significance of Bhutan. We have also discussed Bhutan-China relations and location of Bhutan. Now let's try to understand the today's given news article. In this article, The Foreign Secretary says India and Bhutan remain in close coordination over all security related matters. Right? So Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bhutanese King Jingme Khesar Namgyal Wangchuk so discussed the latest situation along the India-Bhutan border. So they also discussed the progress in Bhutan-China border talks, right? Bhutan-China border talks, because recently Bhutan also included China as part of trilateral talks along with India, and this goes against the interests of India. So this is particularly about the Doklam Tri-Junction point. So we have already discussed the location of Doklam Tri-Junction and how Doklam Tri-Junction is especially important for India. So if there is a possibility of a border deal between China and Bhutan, that could negatively impact India's strategic interests, because that would increase Chinese presence in the region and that would threaten the security of India. The two leaders discussed the entire gamut of bilateral cooperation and issues of national and regional interest. There are several regional issues and national issues also, but the talks dominate the Chinese presence in the region and Bhutan-China border talks. Two countries share exemplary relationship and trust, goodwill, and mutual understanding. As we know, Bhutan is so far one of the uh, one of the countries which maintains a very close and friendly relationship with India. Both countries share an exemplary relationship. Trust, goodwill, and mutual understanding are some of the aspects which define India-Bhutan ties. India-Bhutan have shared interests, right? Shared interests in the region, owing to the security and also the belligerence and assertiveness of China in the region. So both Bhutan and India remain in close touch and close coordination relating to our shared national interests, including security interests also. So the reform and development focus. So apart from or along with the security concerns and a possible border deal with of Bhutan with China, there is also focus on reform and development of Bhutan. So the major focus of the talks on the transformation initiatives and reform process undertaken in Bhutan and India's support for Bhutan's developmental plans. Bhutan have a developmental plans and India is providing credit assistance to Bhutan's developmental plans. This includes the 13th five-year plan that starts from next year, right? So the 13th developmental plan will start from the next year, and India will also support Bhutan, financial support to Bhutan in implementation of the 13th financial plan. So Bhutan is said to graduate from a list of least developed countries. There are a list of least developed countries with very low per capita incomes, but in 2023, Bhutan will come out of the list of least developed countries. The 21st century economic roadmap aims to turn Bhutan have an economic roadmap, and this 21st century economic roadmap aims to turn the Himalayan kingdom into a developed country with a per capita incomes of around $12,000 in the next 10 years. Bhutan in the next 10 years will achieve a $12,000 per capita income. Since it lies in the eastern Himalayas, it is known as the Himalayan Kingdom. India has also agreed to extend Bhutan third additional standby credit facility. India extends credit line of credit to its neighboring countries, and as part of this program, as part of the neighborhood first policy, India extending credit to Bhutan, and India is ready to extend the third additional standby credit facility to Bhutan. So the leaders also discussed the financial support for reforms. Earlier, we have discussed the reforms also and institutional capacity building in Bhutan, and infrastructure connectivity projects also are discussed. Infrastructure and connectivity very important for the development of any nation, and India will provide assistance to Bhutan to improve infrastructure and connectivity. This, in a way, reduces Chinese influence in the region, especially in Bhutan. India and Bhutan have a deep energy cooperation, especially the hydroelectricity. India and Bhutan have been jointly developing different hydroelectricity projects in Bhutan that will help share energy among these two countries. This includes hydropower projects and solar energy projects. India is known for founding International Solar Alliance. India have a necessary capabilities and expertise, and India will further increase cooperation in hydroelectricity and solar energy. This also includes space cooperation. India and Bhutan recently launched India-Bhutan satellite. Okay. Now, Bhutanese citizens enjoy special national treatment in India on par with Indian. The Bhutanese citizens treated in India at par with Indian citizens. So both countries looking for new ways to build on the partnership. We know we have been enjoying a great levels of mutual trust and cooperation. Both India and Bhutan are looking forward to build on the existing partnership so that both can enjoy and the bilateral relationship for each other's benefit. Okay, this is all about India Bhutan relationship and security issues for India from the Bhutan China deal, the border deal. Now let's look into the next news article for discussion today. So the next news article is China recently changed the names of 11 Arunachal Pradesh region, right? So this has been discussed in this article. This leads to, because Arunachal Pradesh is a part of India and it is a sovereign territory, China naming Arunachal Pradesh violates India's sovereignty. India strongly condemned China's actions to rename Arunachal Pradesh provinces. So, in this backdrop, let's just discuss this news article in a little detailed manner. Okay. So, China renaming of these areas in Arunachal Pradesh is new low in ties with India, because India summarily rejected China's attempt to lay claim over areas in Arunachal Pradesh, right? So this was from Indian side. This was a statement issued by the government of India, because the recently the Chinese Ministry of Civil Affairs, it would it says that it would standardize 11 place names in what uh, China, China calls the Arunachal Pradesh as the southern Tibet. Okay, just remember, the China calls Arunachal Pradesh as southern Tibet. There is a Mao's uh, policy of Tibet is a palm and the five fingers, right? So Aksai Chin and Nepal, Bhutan, Arunachal Pradesh, they are palm, uh, palm and fingers policy of Mao. So China still believe that, even Sikkim also, even China believes that Arunachal Pradesh is part of China, but this is not the case, because Arunachal Pradesh is a sovereign territory of India and Arunachal Pradesh not belongs to China, right? So the Ministry of External Affairs from India says that the invented names will not alter the reality that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India, right? So Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India, and invented names will not change the reality in India. So this mirrors in 2021, China renamed 15 places also. In 2021, what China did, China renamed 15 places in Arunachal Pradesh. So in 2017 also, China did the same move, because this was considered as a retaliation after Dalai Lama's visit to Tabang. In 2017, Dalai Lama visited Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh. In retaliation, China also come up with such such renaming of provinces or the areas. So in 2021, the move followed China's land and state border law. So there was a law in China, the land and state border law, that virtually authorized government to claim territories, to reclaim territories. What are the territories claimed by China? So that territory is claimed by this law, the Chinese New Land and State Border Law. So this provides for the reclaiming of territories which are already claimed by China. So this was seen as a way to reassert its claim over the state as a whole. So China has been continuously reasserting its claim over the Arunachal Pradesh. And there could be many factors behind the latest move. The latest move of renaming the 11 regions in Arunachal Pradesh could driven by the several factors. So one such factor is China's reaction after Indian Army rebuffed PLA attempt to take over post. So People's Liberation Army tried to attempted to take over a post in Yangtze. This is also in Arunachal Pradesh, and Indian Army strongly countered the Chinese intention to uh, take over the post. Right. So this was took place in 2022 at line of actual control. So this was also come especially after India, as part of G20 engagement, held an innovation technology meeting in Itanagar. So after this meeting was boycotted by Chinese embassy, and this was also seen because India has been holding G20 meetings in Arunachal Pradesh. And the other reasons are there is a lack of meaningful dialogue between both the sides, Indian side and the Chinese side, is one such reason for the latest move from China. So, for 3 years since the amassing of Chinese troops over the LAC since 2020, the China has been increasing its presence over the LAC region, and we all know about the Galwan clashes where Indian soldiers were died. Since then, uh, Chinese soldiers have significantly increased in the border areas, and China also developing the dual use infrastructure over the LAC region. And this includes a deadly encounter at the Galwan region. So far, what was the bilateral engagement in recent past? So the bilateral engagement include. So there were many rounds of talks, the high level talks, military commander level talks, to make sure that the status quo ante is maintained, disengagement could be achieved among these two nations. So there has been some disengagement at some standoff points. So political relations have not been resumed. Political relations have not been resumed because India has been linking the border tension with overall bilateral relationship with China. On the other hand, China suggesting India that the border conflict should be excluded from the overall bilateral relationship between India and China. In fact, the foreign and defense ministers of India and China have also uh, held several talks, also hold talks on the border issue. In fact, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met on the sidelines of G20 summit last year in Indonesia. But even though several such engagements, there is a no possible outcome. No possible objective outcome has come out. So, what could be the way forward in this conflict? The way forward could be uh, in the light of a latest act of belligerence, assertiveness, aggression of China to deploy its forces to LAC, and frequent clashes between the forces, and also renaming the territories in Arunachal Pradesh, the government should probe the reasons behind China's move so that we could be able to prepare our course of action in the coming time. So this is what the way forward has been. So we have discussed China renaming several regions in Arunachal Pradesh, and uh, what could be the reasons for China renaming of areas, and what are the significant uh, initiatives so far taken to reduce the tensions, and what could be the way forward. So this is all about the India-China standoff. So now let's discuss the next news article. So this news article is regarding the heat wave condition, the possible heat wave in India this year. So, heat wave is one of the major climate related disaster which impacts the health of individuals, especially people who are elderly and people who are working outdoor. It also significantly impacts the productivity of economy and will also resulted result in high levels of mortality, right? So in this backdrop, let's try to discuss the heat waves. So what is a heat wave? Here it is given. What is a heat wave? This is a period of unusually hot weather, right? So hot extreme weather that typically lasts for 2 or more days. But there is no universally, so remember, there is no universally accepted definition for heat wave. This is just a hot and extreme weather condition that prevail for a period of 2 or more days. So World Meteorological Organization gives the following definition. So it defines as 5+ consecutive days during which a daily maximum temperature surpasses the average maximum of temperature at least 5 degrees centigrade. Imagine a place, for example, in Delhi, there's an average temperature 40 degrees centigrade or 42 degrees centigrade. For 5 or more days, so average, so 42 plus 5. So total 47 degrees centigrade for 5+ or more consecutive days. That can be categorized as heat wave. And National Weather Services also defines heat wave. So it defines heat wave as a spell of abnormally and uncomfortably hot and unusually humid weather spanning 2 or more days. See, please remember the definition of the heat wave, because in UPSC mains examination, if you write such definitions when you write answer for question on heat wave, the answer would look more attractive. Okay. So heat wave is known as the natural killers. Why they are known as natural killers? So despite being one of the, this is because heat wave is top three killers in the country, and heat waves are not considered a natural calamity by the government. Even though heat wave is a top three killer in the country, still it is not recognized as a natural calamity by the government. Here you can see some statistics and data on heat waves, right? Uh, this is the third largest killer. 13,548 people died because of heat waves, right? So first lightning, and then earthquake, and then heat stroke. Despite being the third largest killer, the government still not recognized it as a natural calamity. So Indian Meteorological Department also, a weather forecasting agency in India, also defined natural uh, natural heat stroke. So it defines that uh, an increase in 5 to 6 degrees centigrade more above the normal temperature. So how it will be calculated over the average temperatures we already discussed, right? In India, these are the areas more vulnerable to heat wave, right? So this map shows that cumulative heat stroke deaths during 2000 to 2014. So only states, here it is given, the only states with more than 20 deaths per year have been considered, right? So these are the areas highly vulnerable to heat waves. uh, they are marked in a red color. So we have discussed the definition of a heat wave given by the different agencies, and how heat wave is a natural killer and the third largest killer, and especially in India, what are the states which are particularly vulnerable for heat waves. So let's discuss this article, because we understood what is a heat wave. Then we'll discuss the article given on heat waves. The heatwave forecast must be taken as seriously as monsoon warnings. In India, the monsoon warning is taken seriously because it impacts the standing crop, and it also leads to floods in particular areas and loss of lives and economic losses. But heat waves are not taken as seriously as Indian monsoon. So in this context, the article is saying that the article is suggesting that heat wave should be taken as seriously as monsoon warnings. The Indian Meteorological Department uh, predicted that the most parts of the country are expected to experience above normal maximum temperatures. Remember, the above normal maximum temperatures will result in a severe heat wave in different parts of the country. So the above normal heat waves are characterized by 4 to 5 degrees Celsius above what is a usual temperature in a particular region. So uh, in most parts of central, eastern, and northwest India during the hot weather season, right? So this is more than the usual temperature which we generally see in central, eastern, and northwestern India during the hot weather season. In this article, El Nino is also discussed. So what is an El Nino? El Nino is a warming of sea surface temperatures in the equatorial central Pacific Ocean, right? So that is strongly associated with reduced rains over the northwestern India. If uh, there is a presence of El Nino, there will be a significantly less rains over the northwestern India. Many El Nino years also see a reduced monsoon activity over the Indian subcontinent, right? So this is associated with a drought-like conditions over the Indian Ocean. So the IMD's official outlook says that this year there will be a neutral year. That means there will be no El Nino or no La Nina. So this will be a neutral year. See, you have to understand what is El Nino and what is La Nina. For the examination point of view, El Nino and La Nina are very important, and also you have to understand the significance of El Nino, La Nina on or the impact of these two weather phenomena on Indian monsoon, and also understand the Indian Ocean dipole movement, right? Because they are very important for the examination point of view. We will discuss El Nino, La Nina, and Indian Ocean dipole in another lecture. First, we have to look into the hot waves. So the purpose of forecast and dealing with hot waves. So what is the actual purpose of forecast and dealing with hot waves? The purpose include it gives a lead time to states for prepare. So states uh, move their preparedness in case of any heat wave like condition. If we forecast the heat wave, then we could issue guidelines to state governments, particularly the vulnerable states, so that they come out with a proper plan to tackle the heat wave. National Disaster Management Authority, which has been constituted as per the National Disaster Management Act, has been issuing guidelines to states for preparing heat action plans. Since 2016, state governments have been preparing the heat action plans. So many states have prepared documents that detail measures, methods to deal with heat wave related contingencies, right? So many states have already prepared such documents and they deal with heat wave related conditions. So what are the problems which are existing? So many of the recommendations, either the guidelines or any recommendations provided by any research agency on heat wave or the Indian Meteorological Organization guidelines over tackling of heat wave like conditions, they are only on paper. They are not actually implemented, and a researcher's analysis says that the Center for Policy Research analysis says that. So I mean, research such heat action plans, most of them, uh, they have not captured the local context. When you are making guidelines, when you are coming up with proper policies and actions, uh, you should also take into consideration the local context, the local impact of such heat. But these plans have not included or not captured the local context, and they are mostly underfunded and they lack legal backing. There is no legislation on heat waves, and they are also underfunded or low budgetary allocations are being made, because we already discussed that heat wave is not recognized as a natural calamity. So the article also discussed the way forward, the way heat wave forecast should be taken seriously, right? So how we are taking monsoon seriously, in the same way, heat wave forecast should also be taken as seriously. And state governments must play more coordinated role in implementing such heat wave action plans. Yes, we have heat wave action plans, but center and state governments should show the necessary intent and will to implement these heat wave related plans, so that the loss of lives could be further minimized. Not just the loss of lives, the economic productivity could also be safeguarded. But we need to properly map and identify the vulnerable regions, and forecast should be given as early as possible. So let's discuss the next news article for today. So this article is regarding vacancies, increasing vacancies in the judiciary in India, and also piling up of cases. Right, in India, there have been a more number of judicial vacancies, and that has been impacting the delivery of justice. You know, and also there is a recent debate and discussion over increasing women judges in the higher judiciary, that was mooted by the former Chief Justice of India, Ramana, right? So more women judges, a report by India Justice Report. The report says that in India, subordinate courts have more women judges than the high courts or the judiciary. So therefore, the article is suggesting that there should be more number of women judges. Along with more number of women judges, the caste diversities while appointing judges should also be reflected. So in this backdrop, let's discuss this news article in a detailed manner, right? So this India Justice Report 2022 come out with a comprehensive report on judicial vacancies and pending number of cases. So India Justice Report says that so courts are jammed with a number of uh, cases pending, right? And at the same time, the courts are functioning with a very few judges than the sanctioned strength. Here some interesting statistics over the sanctioned judges strength and actual number of judges in both subordinate courts and high courts. In December 2022, actual sanctioned strength of judges is 1108 judges in high courts, but functioning with only 778 cases. So not all the sanctioned judges are not appointed in high courts, and this reduces the efficiency or disposal capacity of high courts, right? But when it comes to the case of subordinate courts, 19,220 to 288 is the sanctioned strength, sorry, actual number of judges is against the sanctioned strength of 24,631 judges. When you are writing a question, when you are writing an answer on the judicial pendency cases, because that is a very important as far as UPSC mains is concerned, you just mention such data in the answer, even in introduction, so that the answer would be more effective and you gain more marks, right? So you just note down the data. There has been a rising tendency of cases, because since there has been a huge vacancy in both subordinate courts and high courts, there has been a rising tendency of cases that impacts the justice delivery. So number of cases pending per judge rising in most states. Each judge have a number of cases, but because of higher vacancies uh, in judiciary, a number of cases uh, per judge have been significantly increasing in the past 5 years. While the sanctioned strength has remained constant, there has been no increase in recruitment of judges at par with the sanctioned strength. So at the High Court level, Supreme Court at the High Court level, Uttar Pradesh has the highest pendency of cases. So cases remain pending for an average of 11.34 years. So uh, the average a case is pending in a High Court is 11.34 years. If a file a case in a if you file a petition or a case in High Court, uh, the case will be resolved after 11 years. This is what the average time is taken to dispose of the cases. The second is West Bengal. It takes 9.9 years. However, the lowest average High Court pendency is in Tripura. In Tripura, it is just 1 year. In 1 year, the case is disposed of or resolved. In Sikkim, it is 1.9 years. In Meghalaya, it is 2.1 years. See, you just have to note down this data. This data is important so that because you can present this data while writing the answer to substantiate your points. So the number of cases a judge has to deal with has steadily increased because of higher pendency. A number of cases a judge have to, hear have been increasing steadily. In 2018 to 2022, the caseload per judge increased in 22 states and union territories. The caseload of judges have been increasing significantly. So this article also discussed the court halls. The court halls and existing infrastructure is sufficient for the judges uh, with judges Indian judiciary currently have. However, if the judiciary and government start recruiting the more and more judges at par with the sanctioned strength, then the court halls and the existing infrastructure will not be enough. So that along with recruitment of judges, the government and the judiciary should also focus on further increasing the infrastructure in the courts so that the justice delivery system will be more effective and it will dispose of cases as early as possible. Because since there has been a huge pendency of cases, justice is not delivered on time. Because since justice is not delivered on time, the government or the judiciary is setting up special courts, fast track courts, or tribunals. They are ad hoc bodies and they deal with uh, several particular issues. For example, a fast track court on criminalization of politics, etc. So this report also quoted women judges at the district level and high court. So this report says that there are more number of women judges at the district level, subordinate level than at the high courts. This indicating that there has been a significant gender parity in judiciary, especially in the higher judiciary, both at the Supreme Court and High Court. So there are more judges at the district level than the High Court level, with 35% of the total number of judges at the district level are women. In contrast to this, only 13% of the total judges are women in high courts across the country, according to this India Justice Report. Right? So this report says that representation of women judges is steadily rising over a period of time. The representation of women judges have been significantly rising in subordinate courts, but on the other hand, the representation of women in high courts is remains low. It remains low in high courts. So among all the high courts, Sikkim, with a total strength of just 3 judges, has the highest national average of 33.3% representation of women in Sikkim High Court. Only Sikkim High Court have just 33.3 percentage of representation for women, national average of 13%. Meanwhile, Bihar, Tripura, Manipur, Meghalaya, Uttarakhand continue to have a woman judges in their high court. So they continue to, they have no woman judges, not even a single woman judge in these states, Bihar, Tripura. See, you have to note down all this data and present this data in your answer sheet so that the answer looks more better and attractive. So this report also discussed about the caste-based reservations. This report says that all the castes are not adequately represented in the Indian judiciary, especially scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and judges from the other backward classes. So because there has been lack of state-wise data on caste diversity in high courts. So this report says that there has been a lack of state-wise data on caste diversity. If data is uh, uh, if we have a data on caste-wise diversity of representation of judges in higher judiciary, then the government and judiciary will take appropriate and adequate measures to increase the number of judges from different caste groups so that the representation of all the sections in the judiciary is a possibility. Okay, this is all about the pendency of the cases and higher vacancies in the higher judiciary and subordinate courts and representation of women and caste-based reservations in judiciary. Now let's look into the other news articles. Remember, these news articles are important for the preliminary examination point of view. So, right. So the first news article is Finland now part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Remember, North Atlantic Treaty Organization is a security alliance which was established in 1948 owing to the threat from the then Soviet Union. Now, Finland recently joined the NATO grouping. The reason for Finland joining NATO grouping is because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Finland also share border with Russia. Okay. So earlier, Finland followed a policy of non-alignment, especially uh, after the Second World War. But now Finland comes under the overall security architecture of protection of NATO grouping. In NATO, all the Western European nations will contribute militarily, financially to face any threats. The common principle of NATO is attack on one is against attack on all. The major endeavors of NATO is a global war on terrorism, where different countries have come together within the NATO grouping to fight against Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, right? So in this backdrop, let's just discuss this news article. So Finland formally joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization on Tuesday, as we have discussed. Finland joined the uh, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This roughly doubling the border because um, Ukraine share border with Russia, and in the same way, Finland also share its border with Russia. Now, the countries which are part of NATO share border with Russia further increased. The length of the border that aliens, this NATO aliens share with Russia, uh, and this doubled the border, and it also bolsters its eastern flank as the war in Ukraine grinds on with no resolution. So the war in Ukraine with no resolution in sight, since because of the war, Russia's war with Ukraine, it compelled countries like Sweden and Finland to further fasten their efforts to join the NATO grouping because of they consider Russia as a threat to their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin had cited uh, opposing NATO's expansionism. See, NATO has been expanding. Even the purpose of the NATO was to counter the Soviet Union. But even after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1990s, the NATO further expanded. The erstwhile republics, which are part of USSR, also becoming a part of NATO. So, owing to the expansion, further expansion of NATO, the US-led military alliance, uh, and especially to Ukraine, Russia says that it attacked Ukraine to protect its sovereignty and territorial integrity because NATO's expansionism threatened our existence. Kremlin says that Russia, the military capital of Russia, it says that Russia would be forced to take countermeasures to Finland's accession. Right? So if Russia's security is threatened, then Russia would be forced to take the countermeasures. If especially Finland joining NATO grouping, if NATO members deployed any military or security related equipment or security forces to the Russian border, then Russia will also forced to take countermeasures. See, this further increases the tensions, the existing tensions. This will not resolve the conflict with Ukraine, but further increase tensions between the West and Russia. This is not a good signal for the global stability. So this move raised the prospect of the conflict in Ukraine escalating further. As we have discussed, this move, Finland joining NATO, further escalate the existing tensions in Ukraine, further escalating Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. So Russia says that it will strengthen the military capacity in its western borders and northwestern region. So in response to move, because now Finland no longer a buffer like a Ukraine, because now it is part of NATO grouping. Since it is not a part of NATO, NATO will deploy the weapon and the security forces. So therefore, Russia says that it will strengthen its military capacity in the western and northwestern borders, because Finland is bordering Russia at the northwestern region. So the event marks the end of an era of military non-alignment of Finland. Earlier, we have discussed earlier, the Finland was followed the policy of non-alignment. Now it abandoned this policy of non-alignment and joined the NATO grouping, because earlier Finland opted to try and maintain friendly relations with Russia. In this backdrop, it is important that there may be a question, which of the following countries recently joined the NATO grouping, or any questions on NATO grouping. Okay, so this is all about Finland joining NATO. So the other important article for discussion today is open network of digital commerce, right? So open network of digital commerce will help democratize e-commerce. So in this context, let's discuss what is open network of digital commerce. In India, we have a significant presence of different e-commerce sites. For example, Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra. They're all known for their service delivery, electronic service delivery, right? In the same way, uh, these big companies have monopolized the e-commerce space. So therefore, India has been mooting an idea of open network of digital commerce, where there will be one single platform, and this platform will consist of all the consumers and sellers. That includes the kirana stores, grocery retailers, and restaurants. They participate in the digital marketplace on an open platform. It is an open platform. All the small retailers and consumers will be part of this open network of digital commerce, and the buying and selling will take place within this open platform. So this article says open network of digital commerce is the next big thing, and it will, I mean, it will democratize India's e-commerce space, and e-commerce won't be limited to a few big players. Now e-commerce is limited to few big players, and open network of digital commerce will further democratize it. For example, a normal buyer or the normal seller can have a separate account in the open network of digital commerce. He would have he would he would have placed several products in this platform, and there will be different sellers from different parts of the country, right? So this will further democratize the e-commerce space. But what is required is an architecture that including millions of small vendors, uh, so they so that they can participate. So what required is an architecture, an overarching comprehensive architecture, so that all individuals, all stakeholders can participate in this open platform. Please remember open network of digital commerce. In UPSC, you may get the question, open network of digital commerce is related to which of the following? It is an e-commerce where all uh, individuals can participate, both buyers and sellers. This is a part of democratization of e-commerce space in India. Okay, so that's it. These are all important news articles for today's discussion. And we have discussed some of the most important statistics related to the judiciary and also the India Bhutan ties. So note down, they will be helpful for you in the examination. That's it for today, and thank you so much.